she got a different kind of flower to palliate, to express the fact that he was sorry about everything. So she kept saying, I got flowers today. And the beating was increasing. And she kept getting flowers. And the final flowers she got was by her graveside, the wreath. That's how important this topic is. We've been dealing with spousal abuse. And by way of recap, I'll just talk about what we try to define it as any abusive, violent, coercive behavior, forceful behavior that is meted out by a spouse on the, on the partner. And that can stretch from just words or pull and tearing to murder, can stretch. By definition, that is spousal abuse. And last week, we tried to capture what is behind spousal abuse. And we said, one is misinterpretation of what submission is supposed to be. And we said in that lecture that submission is given, not taken. So when you hear somebody say, you must submit to me, come here, pull, that's a kind of misinterpretation of what submission is. And that misinterpretation usually leads to spousal abuse. But the second thing we talked about is the power and control will, where we said that at the back of every abusive behavior is the desire to control the partner. So at the center, I wish, Oni, you can show us that power and control will, just for refreshing our memories, that at the center of every abusive behavior is the desire to control, the desire to exert power on the spouse. We also tried to say that spousal abuse is not gender. It could be the man abusing the woman. It could be the woman abusing the man. And then we said at the center is power and control. And in order to control, various tactics are used in controlling the partner. So it doesn't matter whatever is being used. The important thing is, let me be able to control this person. So humiliation, isolation, dominance, threats, intimidation, every kind of tool is used. If you look at that wheel, it's, everything is there, but at the center is power and control. And how I do this, how I'm able to exert this power, or how I'm able to do this control varies. So for different people, they use different things. And that's where, the different kinds of abuse start playing out. Because if somebody is just going to use intimidation and talking down on, it's going to be more of verbal abuse that is going to be manifesting. Money can be used as a control tool. So depending on what tool is used, we can now talk about different kinds of spousal abuse. And most times when we talk about spousal abuse, we talk about physical, because that's going violent physically. But then beyond physical, you have psychological, stroke emotional kind of abuse. You have sexual abuse. You have economic abuse. And there was one we didn't talk about last week, which is like a contemporary thing, where I called it religious abuse, where you feel that fasting and prayer, midnight prayers, are yokes that must be tied around your spouse's neck. If you want to be awake from 12 midnight to 4 a.m. every day of your life to pray and fast, and it's coming from you and you want to do it, you can do it. But you also don't have to intimidate somebody into, especially if somebody is not disposed towards that. That's one kind of subtle religiosity that we eventually end up, yoking a partner. I call it religious abuse. So you can be awake. Some people will not be able to be awake between 12 and 4 a.m. and still go to work the next day. So if you're doing it and you're doing it effectively, beautiful. If you're also doing it and you're doing it in partnership with your spouse, agreement, beautiful. But if one person is feeling coerced and forced to live a life where the person has to be awake for you, that's a form of religious abuse. Okay, so I also talked about abuse being cyclical, where we said, like in that video that he just showed, if you notice initially the beating was, when the beating was over, the lady was still looking okay. But as it deepened, you could see that her facade was changing. Yeah. And then later she had bruises everywhere. So there's this cyclical thing where it increases. And then the other thing about being cyclical is also that, yes, he beats, or she beats, or she abuses, and then brings flowers as a kind of, oh, I'm sorry. Remorse. Honeymoon, that was what we talked about last week. There's an abuse, and then there's remorse, and then there's honeymoon. I bring you flowers, I take you out to dinner to show that I'm sorry, and then everything returns to normal. And then over time, there's a trigger. And when there's a trigger, there's an abuse, and the cycle repeats itself. And then we also talked about it's being cyclical in terms of the fact that it can run from, generation to generation, not because there's a gene that is inherited, but simply because of nurture, what we call nurture, that a child watched the father over the years abusing the mother, or the mother abusing the father over the years. And one way or the other, there's a kind of silent mentoring that is going on, or a modeling that the parent is doing. And even though the child might despise what is happening with the parents, he grows up, or she grows up, gets married, and gets into the same pattern. And that's why we usually, when we counsel people that are about to get married, we ask questions about foundation. Why do we ask that question? It's not because you now say, oh, if the foundation is bad, let's leave this thing. No, you're asking about foundation so that you can address it before you before you get into your own marriage, because the tendency for this cycle to repeat in this young home from what he was brought up in, or she was brought on, it's very high. So those are the things we discussed concerning abuse last week.
Let me add one or two things. Like in that video we watched, I each time I watch that video, I feel so sad. The lady was depreciating. And I will urge every one of us to, to go to our blog to watch it fully. I don't know why we couldn't hear the audio, but the lady was depreciating. She was very fine at the beginning, but over time, and that's what abuse brings into the family. Depreciation. The person keeps going down until finally it goes. Then you also talked about last week, you also talked about that blame that comes. The abuse, the remorse, and they are entering into the honeymoon. It's like, honey, you know that if you didn't do this, I wouldn't have done this. So it's like absolving himself. I didn't do it because I wanted to do it. It was because you did this. So it further makes the victim to have a pile of blame on herself or himself, that it was because you did this that I did it. I wouldn't have done it. I'm a nice guy. And that is part of the emotional warfare that is waged on the victim. So go ahead.
And so the abuser kind of is in denial about the fact that there's a problem here and the problem is me. He's in denial. Yeah. So yes, there's a problem here, but it is because of you that this problem is. So this just the kind of thing that goes on. And then you have abuse, remorse, honeymoon, normalcy, tension, and then back to full-blown abuse. Okay, so after talking about all that last week, we were asking ourselves, okay, so we know about spousal abuse. We know the different kinds of spousal abuse. We know the cycle and what happens. Is that all? No, we said we should deal with spousal abuse. We should recognize it for what it is, and then we should address it. And maybe before I talk about addressing it, I want to ask the first set of questions. This is not the main question, but this first set of questions, I just want us to think about it. You may not write it down, or you may, but I mean, they are just about 5 questions. I want you to be able to answer yes or no to yourself as I read out the questions. There are 6 questions. The first one I'll ask you is, violence within the home, should it be a private affair? In other words, it should be keep it in the family. We have a book titled Keep It in the Family. So I'm asking a question now. Violence within the home is a private affair. Yes or no? I think there are 6 questions. I really want to know. If I find out who answered yes and who answered no, I might want to ask that question later. But just note it. Out of the 6 questions I'm going to ask, how many yes and how many no you have? Or if you have all yes, or if you have all no. So this is the first one. Violence within the home is a private affair. Question 2. Alcohol and drugs are the main causes of spousal abuse. Yes, no. Your answer is not in the middle. You either answer me yes or you answer me no. 3. At home, it's helpful sometimes to beat family members depending on what they did wrong. Beating. Yes, no. 4. A victim could stop the abuse. A victim, we are not talking about the abuser here. A victim can stop the abuse that she or he is going through if she tries. Yes, no. Question 5. Often the abuse stops without help. There's an abusive relationship and sometimes it can just stop. Question 5. Often the abuse stops without help from others. Yes, no. And the final question. Someone who is violent towards a partner will be violent towards others. That's outside the family. Somebody is violent towards the partner. If in the workplace, the person will manifest also. In church, the person will manifest violence also. Yes, no. Please, there are 6 questions. Please, if you had a yes in any of your questions, please, can you just unmute or raise your hand? Let me know that you had a yes. Okay, somebody had a yes. I don't know if they had a yes. Is there any other person that had a yes?
Yes.
Oh, some people had a yes. Okay. All right, I'll ask Nnamdi, please unmute. Which one was a yes for you?
Question 2.
Alcohol and drugs are the main causes of domestic violence. And you said yes. Is that the only yes you had?
Yes, that's the only yes I have.
Okay, please. Okay, you can mute. I'll address it. Who else had a yes, please?
Margaret has.
Margaret, please, which was a yes for you?
And if he also had.
Okay, let me hear Margaret, please. What was the yes for you? Who is trying to talk? Sorry,
mine is number 4.
Okay, a victim could stop the abuse. That's the only one who had a yes.
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me why you think the victim can stop the abuse, or how?
The victim can stop the abuse by I mean, like, for example, you don't have to stay in that home. You can stop the abuse by leaving.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
all right.
You can save your life by leaving,
Okay.
by exiting, so you can stop it, because remaining in that home can actually kill you.
Okay.
I mean, you can be killed. And secondly, you can also stop the abuse by reporting to appropriate authority.
Okay.
By not
Thank
keeping
you.
quiet.
Thank you. Thank you. Lambert also agrees with you that a victim can stop the abuse. All right. I want to say that to all my questions, the answer is a no.
Okay, if he
I gave out your expo. So which one was a yes for you? I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, Auntie. It was actually the same one. Number 4 was a yes for me too.
Okay.
For the same reason.
Understand. I understand why you're saying number 4 is a yes, because yes, by leaving, the person can stop the abuse. But apart from removing yourself from that environment, there's really nothing a victim can do to stop an abuse. Most of the times, in other words, most of the times there's a blame on you that it's because you did this, that's why I'm abusing. Most times, even when the victim stops that thing that is being pointed out, you'll find out that the abuse still goes on. In other words, change of behavior or change of the circumstances around most times does not change the abuser from continuing to do what he's doing. Okay, I'm actually doing this because you don't cook dinner. And so you tell yourself, oh, it's because I don't cook dinner, and you start cooking dinner. There will be another thing to find to control, because the real thing is control. But I understand why you're saying a yes, because exiting from the situation, that's a different thing. Honey, you want to say something?
Yes. Lambert and Gibbs answered yes in 6. So I want you to look at it.
Okay, so I'm going to look at Nnamdi saying that alcohol and drugs are the main causes of domestic violence. I beg to say no. Many people that are engaged in domestic violence don't even drink.
Yeah.
And some of them don't do drugs. Quite a number of them don't do drugs. So drugs and alcohol can aggravate domestic violence, but it is not the main cause of domestic violence. Then someone who is violent towards a partner will be violent towards others. 99% of the time, no.
They are actually good guys.
They are usually very nice to outside people.
Outside.
They are usually wonderful. If their story comes out, say, wow, they are usually the good guys in the office, the kind guys in the office. They are usually the good people in church, the nice brother in church. The cooperative sister they usually are different outside. Because they have their victim inside, they need to control. They usually don't do the same thing outside. So you find out that most times, there's something this question is bringing out, the fact that it is the abuser that has the key. And most of the times, it's not really what the victim does that is going to change the situation. Apart from, of course, what Margaret said about exiting or, reporting, which is what we are now going to talk about. Okay, so in dealing with spousal abuse, the first thing we talk about is awareness. We just need to be aware of it. You need to be sensitive to it. Sensitive not because you're expecting it on yourself, but also the people around you. Because if we are aware, then there are some that we can stop. And then we can stop even at a stage without, it's reaching to manslaughter and murder. So awareness is so important that is really part of why we are holding this particular topic in this Zoom talks. Become better acquainted with the issues surrounding domestic violence and take it seriously. That's awareness. The B of dealing with it is be sensitive to recognize abuse. Look out for the telltale signs. Don't say it's not my business. And I'm going to again take us through an exercise, some questions again. There are many signs of an abusive relationship, and one of the most significant signs is fear. Once, when you have fear of your partner, it's a telltale sign, a very strong sign. If you feel like you have to walk on eggshells, I really need to be careful here or something will explode constantly. Remember, there was something we were saying last week, that a one-off behavior or once in a while behavior does not translate to spousal abuse, but it has to be consistent, it has to be persistent. And then most times it's on the increase. So it's not something, once in a while. But when most of the times there's fear of a spouse, is a very strong sign of that there's an abusive relationship here. So the other signs that we look out for is things that belittle, low, that bring out low self-esteem or depression in you or something like that. Now, there are two aspects we are looking for. Remember, I was saying be sensitive. We want to look out for what are the signs that I am in an abusive relationship. Then we're also going to look at what are the things to look out for that my neighbor or my workmate is in an abusive relationship, because it might all depend on me, not necessarily the victim, to get the person out of that relationship. So let's address the first one. How do I know that I am in an abusive relationship? And I'm going to ask some questions. Now, let me tell you what these questions will do. Some of the questions will also make you to be on the alert to ask yourself, hey, I should be careful. Maybe the way I'm handling my spouse is not an ideal way. And then, that will help you to walk around it and change that behavior. Sometimes we approach a behavior, we don't even realize that that behavior is not right. So this particular group of questions is centered on yourself or probably your spouse, because it will now make you know that maybe I'm not dealing well with my spouse.
And let me add to that. Let's remember what John 5:19 says, that the son does what the father does. And so we are not just looking at people who are being abused, but even the abusers. And remember that if you are doing those activities, and you don't even know that it's a kind of abuse, you are teaching a small footsteps following you and learning from you. And maybe the person can take that abuse to the next level. In Nigeria, we'll talk about the next level. The person can take that abuse to the next level in his own time. And you don't want that. So it's important for us to also review what we are doing. That's some of the things that we do that are actually abusive. We talked about, I like the way she handled this aspect of alcohol and drugs, because many people go and give the blame to them. But at the center of that abuse wheel that she showed us is power and control. And that is what fans out to all the other things that predispose to that abuse. So let's always remember that. So you can go ahead to give us the exercise.
Okay, so now in this exercise, you're also going to just answer yes or no, but there are more questions now. I can give you an expo ahead of time. The more yes that you pick out, you answer to this question. You're not going to share this one with us. The more yes you answer, the more likelihood that there are signs of abuse in your relationship. The no's should swallow the yes. I'll tell you the number of yes that is a red flag at the end. But there are quite a number of questions, and those questions are going to address like 4 different aspects. One is your own thought pattern. The other one is any belittling behavior that is coming from your spouse. The third one is about violent behavior. And the fourth one is about a partner's controlling behavior. So the questions go around these 4 components, but just take them one by one. You can just be answering yes, no, and then count your yes and your no's at the end. So the first one is, do you feel afraid of your partner most of the time? I'm sure I'm not even going to pause, so you should just be answering yes, no. Do you feel afraid of your partner most of the time? Do you avoid certain topics, discussing certain topics with your spouse because you are afraid of angering your spouse? Do you feel that with your spouse you can never do anything right? In other words, whichever way you do it, you're wrong. Do you believe that you deserve to be treated the way you deserve to be hurt? In other words, I merit the hurt that I'm getting.
Or like some people say, this is my mouth, don't they put me for trouble? So you justify the trouble you enter because your mouth is rough, and you feel that your mouth is rough or that you always do wrong things. Continue.
You wonder if you're the one who is crazy. In other words, there's an argument and you're putting out your points, but somehow at the end you wonder, am I the one that is crazy in this situation? Or do you feel emotionally numb? You know what it means to be numb? Some people, it's as if there's no emotion anymore. The person is speaking. I don't have any emotion. I don't have any reaction towards this. I just feel numb or helpless. Okay? Another one. Does your partner humiliate or yell at you? As spouses, as partners, we're supposed to talk to one another. In every relationship, even if you're not married to the person and you're in friendship, you talk. You can have differences of opinion, but you talk about them. We're asking, does your partner usually yell at you? Remember, you can now answer, do I always yell at my partner? Does your partner criticize you and put you down in most situations? Does your partner treat you so badly that you're embarrassed for friends or family to watch you people in an argument or in a relationship? That you're ashamed of, you're embarrassed because of how badly that he or she would treat you in front of your friends or family. There are people that will want to have their friends around, not because they are, they don't want to be hospitable, but they know that there might be an explosion while their friends or their family is there. So they avoid that. So is that your situation? Does your spouse ignore your opinions or your accomplishments most of the times? You have a promotion. What's the big deal? You have an opinion, is a no opinion. His or her opinion is the important thing. Does your spouse blame you for their abusive behavior? You feel that you're being abused, but most of the times it is you that is being blamed. For
if I hadn't done this, I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah. Okay. In talking about violence now, does your partner have a bad and unpredictable temper? You hear somebody say, hey, please, if my husband explodes here, does he or she have a bad explosive temper? Does your partner hurt you or threaten to hurt or kill you? There are people that get that as a regular threat. I don't want to talk about what happened this week. I had an experience as if after the presentation last week, just 2 days down the line, my phone was just going back, and pictures were being uploaded to my phone. I opened the picture, I nearly screamed. A young friend that I have, when I say friends, people that he tried to mentor, had been battered. And I thought she had an accident.
I have never seen this type.
And she just sent pictures. She didn't say utter a word. I had to call out of fear. What is it? She said, this is what was done to me today. So, and what her fear was that while it was being done, he said, I will kill you. He said it. So sometimes when we are talking about this thing, it looks so far away. But, you know, I cringed again. I said, my goodness. So is there a threat to kill or hurt that comes out usually when there's, you know, a disparity in opinion? Or is there a threat to take the children away or harm the children? That's another question. Is there a threat to commit suicide? You know, somebody can be the abuser and is now telling you, in fact, if you do, I will just kill myself. Is
for
there
you.
Such a threat?
I'll kill myself for you.
Is there a force to have sex? Are you forced? Or does your partner destroy your belongings? Sometimes when there's an argument, you see somebody either going to take somebody's clothes or even books or something and start destroying them. That's a significant sign.
Or break TV.
Or break TV. Sometimes we don't go to TV because the person might feel he bought the TV and he doesn't want to destroy it, or she bought the TV. This one, they go for personal items more of the time. Or, well, when it's TV, it's like, okay, you bought this TV, I'm going to destroy it. Final set of questions. Does your partner act excessively jealous and possessive? Oh, my husband really loves me. He's a very jealous. Does he act excessively? People that act excessively jealous, when there's a man calling you on the phone, their reaction, the man might be a boss, might be a workmate, might even be a junior staff that you give instructions, but the reaction is usually out of place. And then you say, oh, it's just that I'm jealous, excessively jealous or possessive. Don't talk with that person. Don't sit near a man. Don't sit near a woman. If a woman smiles and passes near you, is a problem. Is there an excessive display of jealousy or possessiveness? That's one. Does your partner control where you go and what you do each time? You can't take those decisions on your own. Does your partner keep you from seeing your friends or family members? That's another question. Does your partner limit your access to money or to the phone or to the car? I hear people say, don't touch that car. In a marital relationship, don't touch my car. Whose car? So are you, or maybe there's a problem. The person seizes the key because the person knows that he or she bought the car for you. Is there a limit to access to money or phone each time there's a misunderstanding? Does your partner constantly check on you? That's positive.
Not out of love.
That can be positive. That's why I'm emphasizing that can be positive. But constantly checking, where are you? Why are you not back? Where are you now? You're in the bus. Have you climbed down? So where are you walking now? Well, I'm hearing a voice in the background. Who are you talking with? Okay, in how many minutes you should be back? A kind of constant monitoring of an adult.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know, you must have had about 22 questions. Can you count? Can you check? Do you have how many please, if you have up to 5 years here, don't tell me that you have. Or you even think that you do that to your partner. That's your, you're a man here, let me say. And some of these things is how you treat your spouse. Just note that most of these things are signs of control, signs of abusive behavior that you need to tone down, or you need to address, or you need to seek help for. Most of these questions in a normal relationship, you're not going to get more than about 3 to 4 yes in the questions I just asked. But when you start getting a 10, that's a red flag, big red flag. So what are we doing? We are saying be sensitive to know that there are signs of abuse in your relationship, and address it before it goes beyond where it is. But the other angle now is talking about the things to look out for in, let me say, your workmates or your neighbor. There are signals of people that are being abused, and you need to check them. There are quite a number, but I just want to pick some strategic one. Sometimes you'll be discussing with a friend, or you're inviting somebody to a program, and the person is so afraid. It's like, can you tell my husband? A morbid kind of fear. I mean, you should be able to tell your husband, oh, I was invited to this program, I'd love to go. And then people can discuss it. But when you see somebody is so afraid of discussing it, and it's even giving you tips of how to go and convince him so that you'll be in that program. People who are being abused may seem afraid or anxious to please their partner, and they go along with everything their partner says or does. They check in often with their partner to report where they are and what they are doing. They receive frequent harassing phone calls from their partner. And then they talk about their partner being, having a temper, or being possessive or jealous. These are some warning signs you may see in a friend, and you start asking yourself questions. Sometimes you also see the signs of real physical violence, where they have frequent injuries or so-called accidents. I remember a particular friend in the office that time. One day she came in with a black eye. She said she walked into a door, and I actually believed it. The only reason why I realized there was something going on is that she was always walking into a door. So at least once a month, she walk into a door, and you wonder, is it that she needs glasses or something? The truth is that she was undergoing, abuse, physical abuse.
And
so when you see somebody,
a lot of people are going through that.
And a lot of people are going through that. Like the little young friend I said sent those pictures. If she goes out now and somebody sees, maybe she'll say that the bus she was in, that they pushed her out of the bus. It was one chance. They tell the stories just trying to hide, cover up what they are going through most of the times. And then sometimes they, after giving excuses of accidents in the home or accidents outside, I fell from Okada, because, they want to hide something. The other thing is the kind of dressing. Sometimes they dress to hide wounds. So you'll be wondering, oh, the weather is hot and the person is wearing a long sweater. And there might be something underneath that sweater. So remember, we're sensitizing ourselves. You shouldn't just be assuming, because sometimes people are yearning, to cry out, but there's nobody to cry out to. And the people that should be seeing the signs are not seeing them.
Or they are seeing them and they are keeping quiet about it. And the terrible aspect of this thing is that when you see an abuse going on and you keep quiet, you are helping the person to train the next generation of abusers. Because when a child is watching the parent, one of the parents abusing the other person, you are preparing that person for the next level of abuse, and it's surely going to happen. It usually happens. So we need to do something about it. That's why it's good that we are talking like this. Go ahead.
Okay. The other thing is also absences from work. I remember the Lagos banker that was killed by her husband about 2 years ago. One of the things that, you know, when they were interviewing the colleagues, most of these things were coming out. Some of the colleagues were saying she was always missing work and getting queries. And part of why she was missing work is that when the wound is such that she can't come out, she goes behind an excuse and she doesn't turn up in the office. Then when the wound is in control, she turns up. By the time she turns up, the bruises are showing, and she says she had a fall. And these things were happening as they interviewed about 4 colleagues, and each of them noticed this thing over years, and nobody spoke out until she was dead. Okay, so the other thing, warning signs of isolation, is where you see people being restricted from talking to family members or visiting family members. That's you need to ask questions, or they have limited access to funds, or they have to beg, for money for everything. Those are signs of abuse. Also, you could also pick, if you're sensitive enough, you may pick the psychological signs, which are mainly show of low self-esteem or kind of personality disorders. Those ones are more difficult to pick. But there are some people that show some personality disorders, signs of depression, anxiety, and all that might just be coming from the fact that the person is a victim of abuse. So
just pause a little bit. Umuabasi raised her hand. I just want to find out why she. Would you want to unmute? You want to say something?
Good evening, doctor.
Good evening.
Okay. So I have a question. How do we help someone who we have from this teaching? Thank you so much for the teaching. How do we help someone who we have recognized that is actually going through this abuse? And of course, we know the person is not willing to open up, but we have seen over the years that this person is actually going through all that you have listed here. How do we help them? Over 2 years of marriage, and she's going through all of this.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. And that's where the C is coming from. We talked of A, awareness. We talked of B, be sensitive. Be sensitive in your own relationship. Be sensitive and aware of signs of abuse around you. The C is confrontation. The C is confrontation. When I say confrontation, it's not to attack. But confrontation here is to take action. One thing that does not solve abuse is silence.
Yeah.
In fact, most of the times, exposure of abuse is the beginning of the end of that abuse, because the abuser really doesn't want to be exposed. So, and most people that are in an abusive relationship actually cover and keep covering. But what they don't know in that covering is that they are actually aiding that abuse.
Yeah.
And so whether you're the one that is in an abusive relationship or it is a friend, one thing that must be done is to confront. The abuser needs to be confronted. The confrontation will take different forms. In fact, what I said here is that confront the issues with the offending partner and make them fully aware of the gravity of the situation. To take action against the abuser, it may simply be to tell someone. Those who do not take action those who do take action are less likely to be abused again. So if you're the victim, One of the action you can take, it can be as simple as speaking out. It's not necessary, I'm not talking about going to the police or something. It can be as simple as speaking out to, your support group, whether it is your church support group, whether it is your pastor, whether it is a family friend. Silence will not help. And you see, when there's an abuse, the victim and the abuser both need help. That's one thing we want to bring out this evening. The abuser, we're saying something that the abuser needs to come to his senses. The abuser needs help. The victim needs help. So that confrontation you're doing is like an exposure. Once you do an exposure, abuse comes down, and then you can now start dealing with it. So it's a confrontation. And so if you are a friend to somebody that is going through an abusive relationship, you must confront, you must expose it to a counselor or to a group that will have to interrupt that cycle and get the abuser to get help. Let
me just explain a little more of confrontation. Let's not see confrontation as if you just come and start quarreling or blowing.
No.
He's saying is that there has to be bringing of that issue on the table. That is, in other words, because what really empowers abuse is silence.
It's secrecy and silence.
Yes. So the confrontation is taking away the secrecy and taking away the silence and saying, no matter how feeble your voice is or who you are talking to, that aspect is just like 419. If somebody wants to do 419 to you or to steal from you, he will be telling you, don't tell any other person. Because immediately you tell somebody, even if it's a small child, you tell, their reasoning, their hold over you will be broken. That's what we are saying. That confrontation, don't take it as if it's like you come and start blowing the person. But that you bring the issue, a realization that this is happening and it should not happen. And let's talk about it.
Usually a counselor will be involved. And what the counselor is trying to do is what we'll call the 6 R's. The counselor is trying to bring this abuser to a realization of what he or she is doing wrong, a realization that you are an abuser and that you have a victim and that this victim is hurting. Most of the times they live in denial, so you need to bring them to that point. When you bring them to that point of realization, then you take them to the point of also repentance, which is letting them recognize that this is a sin against God. Because you're in a partnership, that you're in a marital relationship does not make you superior in any way to the person that you're in that relationship with. So, bringing the person to repentance to know that this is a sin against God and against their victim is the second R. Then you will have to pass that abuser through resolutions. Through resolutions. Resolutions is not just, it's not like New Year resolution. I'm not, this is not going to happen. This is not, and because you're going to also pass the person through that process, you have to reassess it. So it's not just that there are resolutions and then you go home. There has to be a kind of reassessment. How well are we doing with the resolutions that we have made? There needs to be a relearning.
Just before you go to relearning, the resolution is where what makes us also to always say that the power to stop, apart from just leaving the abusive environment, the power to stop, that's by the victim, the power to stop abuse lies with that person that is abusing. That is the villain.
He has the key to stopping the abuse.
That key. And that's why that resolution is very important.
Has to come from him.
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, so also there's the kind of relearning. You understand? There's a behavior, there's an abusive behavior. So it's like a behavior and it's manifesting over time. There has to be a relearning. by that person, relearning the behavior that excludes violence, that excludes, intimidation. So it's almost like teaching the person afresh how to act. It's a relearning. It's because there's a behavioral pattern that has been there, and the person has to relearn that there's a different way to pass across information. It doesn't have to be by shouting or yelling. Yes, it doesn't have to. There's a way to get this done. It's not by beating. So it's not an overnight thing working on the abuser. And he has to agree to go through that process. That's why we started with realization. The other thing is also
maybe two things. Maybe two things about that relearning is that sometimes, you probably need to pass the person through to know how to resolve conflicts or if there are issues, and then also to be able to revaluing the spouse is part of it.
Revaluing the spouse, because you find out that in an abusive relationship there has been a decimation of the spouse.
Yes.
Up to the point that the spouse is just like a footmat. That's why you can tell the person you're useless, you're hopeless, you have nothing to contribute. You're pulling back my life. So you're making somebody feel so down. So you have to start revaluing your spouse, realizing that God brought this spouse to you as a helpmate, as a helper, not as a footmat. So that revaluing process is something, again, that the abuser needs to learn over time. So that's all what, confronting the issue is. So the confrontation is not, I'm going to beat you, I'm taking you to the police. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about really getting this person through counseling to go through these processes, and then it's going to be reviewed over time, and you find out that over time this can actually work, because there have been people that have been passed through this process and the abuse ended. And like I told you, just exposure is already a very strong instrument to ending an abuse, especially in adults. So, I've concentrated on the abuser because we say that the abuser has the key in this abuse. But then the victim, we remember, we also need to attend to the victim, because the victim has been decimated, and is hurting. And so we need the victim needs a lot of healing, needs a lot of talking, with victim, and building up the self-confidence, letting the victim know that, even Jesus himself was traumatized. The Bible talks about how they slapped him, and spat on his face and all that Jesus understands abuse. And so you can go to him for healing of abuse. It is a process. The person that has been through abuse really needs an inner healing that it takes time to happen, and you need to be patient with that victim and get the victim to that point of healing and forgiveness, because again, there's a lot of bitterness that is going on in the heart. So you bring her to the point of being able to forgive and release his or her captive, which is the person that has been abusing him or her over the years and all that. And if the healing process takes place, the person starts seeing himself or herself again as a human being. You'll find some people that have been victims of abuse in such a way that they don't even have confidence in themselves anymore. They may be professionals, they may be whatever, they may be so good at something, but they have lost, esteem. So building up that esteem takes time. Praying with them, counseling with them, asking, God to really heal them from the inner heart, even as the process of revaluing and all that is going on in the life of the abuser.
And also standing with that person. If the victim knows that somebody is standing, not somebody who will quarrel, join with her or something, no, but somebody who is my own person standing with me. That is enough strength, because oftentimes the abuser wears them down so much that even professionally, their productivity will start going down. Their value will start going down in the eyes of other people, and even in their own eyes, they start feeling valueless. So if they realize that somebody is with them, it's part of answering Umabasi when she was talking about, when she was asking, what do you do? The mere fact that you are talking with that person, that you identify with that person, because oftentimes the fear is that if I tell this person now, and he goes and tells somebody, then my husband will hear it, or that abuser will hear it, and now kill me finally. But the fact that you are able to prod in a little bit more, a little care, and a little standing with that person will give a lot of comfort, give a lot of courage, and sometimes, you know, being able to push so that there will be a confrontation. And do you know that sometimes some of these abusers need help actually, but sometimes some of the abusers are actually, they are wimps. They're trying to cover up, you know, by that abuse. There are people who are actually afraid of something inside, and so they do all those violence and all those things. And a little confrontation might actually reveal that that person really needs a lot of help. So please don't take it as if no, this thing doesn't concern me. If we're able to solve this thing doesn't concern me in all the lives of all the people listening, we would have achieved something. Because you will look around here, just like what she told you, that immediately after last week's program, you know, one came up very bad. Like I said, I have never seen somebody that battered. I've never. It's too terrible. And we see these things. And I mean, I'm sure after this program, you also see. And what we are saying is that don't say that it doesn't concern you, because it does.
In fact, in extreme cases, you might have to separate the two. Yeah. You know, we usually say it, and we say it without reservation. God hates divorce. Yes. But in an abusive relationship, there is a place to separate the two people if it becomes necessary, until therapy, until healing has taken place, until the abuser has taken some resolutions and all that. So there might be a need for a temporary separation before bringing them back together. But these are things that have to be done properly and professionally, not just, you know, telling a friend, oh yeah, pack your things and leave. No. But yes, there is a place for separation until this abuse has been sorted out. I think with that is really the summary of dealing with it. We just need to be aware of it. We need to be sensitive, and then we need to engage and confront, you know, the abuser, and then support the victim in her healing process, and be, you know, to be able to re-recognize herself or himself and gain some confidence again and be able to face life. I think with that, that's if we have any contributions or questions.
Yes, so thank you so much. Are there some comments, some questions? I know, you know, whenever this is presented, a lot of people have a lot of new things that come into them, resolutions and all that. I'm also getting some private messages from participants about what they plan to do and all that. So it's really touching a lot of people. If you have comments, this is the time to bring it out. If you also want to ask a question, you can raise your hand and ask this question. So we just have a short time to do. I want to find out, I'm seeing Umabasi's hand. Is it the old hand or new hand?
No, it's the old hand, doctor.
It's the old hand.
It's the old hand.
Okay. Okay. So if anybody has any other thing, okay. Yes.
Namdi has it.
Namdi, okay. Go ahead. Namdi and then gift. Okay.
Good evening, Uncle. Good evening, Auntie. I have one question. And I know I missed the first meeting I believe that was where you trashed out that one. But I saw when you were flipping through your presentation, I saw rigidity with finances as a way somebody can be abusive. So,
Yes.
what if things are really not that rosy and you're trying to conserve what you have so much that maybe you must have crossed the line one way or the other by being a little bit abusive on it. Like, it's not as if it's intentional, but you try to cut off some extras that you would have normally have allowed. So how do you now know how do you now gauge yourself to know that you have not crossed the line to being
into the world of abuse?
Your spouse?
Okay, we actually talked about that in detail last week, that we have to separate being thrifty from abuse, from finance.
Yeah.
Abuse, of course, at different times in the home, finances are, they roll in, they roll out, and there will be times of plenty and there will be times of, want. That's not what we are talking about at all. It lies on us to control finance, to plan and all that. But when we talk about financial abuse, it is where you want to subdue somebody with, with money. In other words, I'm not going to, in fact, most of the people that do financial abuse actually have the funds.
Yes.
So if there's no funds, it's really likely not to be financial abuse. Most of the people that use finance as control knob have those finances with them. But they now want to show you that I need to control this finance, and how I release it is dependent on how I want, because I want you to be, to be subjugated, or I want you to agree to my terms.
Yeah.
So it's the state of the mind now that we are talking about.
Okay.
Then if one of the examples we also gave was where people say, oh, I don't want my wife should not work. Now, somebody can say that just out of concern, out of you people discussed and planned it. He has the money, maybe the children are coming, he wants a good control at the home front. That's
and he
beautiful.
can be bankrolling everything.
Yes, but when you see somebody, no, if she starts working now, she starts earning money, she'll start doing shakara, let her not work. I insist, I'm the man here, let her not work. That's financial control. Because you want to use finance to, to press the buttons. So those were the details we talked about, not about scarcity. Of course, when there's scarcity, we need to plan. And in planning, remember, it's a conversation. It's not one man. If you're able to communicate what we have and what we are planning with, the average woman runs with it and becomes more thrifty than you. But if you don't communicate it, that's when most of the times it will be misunderstood. So I hope I've been able to answer that question.
Yes. Also, if you need more to listen to it, you can get to the blog, familycolorsblog.blogspot.com. I've already put it in the chat. So you can check there and you will listen to what we also discussed last week. And feel free to make comments also, even to get back to us. I can see two hands still, Gift and Udochika. So who shoots first? Chika. Okay, or Gift. Who wants?
That's GP that wants to talk.
Okay, GP. Okay.
Yeah. Good evening. I just want to thank Dr. Shi for this broad and very touching. And I want to appreciate the fact that she mentioned that abuse might not be only just maybe hitting or beating. There are several ways that you can, be abusing your spouse without even knowing that you are abusing your your spouse and making her to lose her self-esteem or his self-esteem and so on. Okay, after saying that, we're talking about violence. I want to ask a question because sometimes in the environment around us, you have cases where there are a lot of abuse and there are cases that you treat. At what stage that will you allow separation? That's number one question. When you see that there is abuse, at what stage? All the signs are there. At what stage will you counsel, a couple after separation? Then the question is that the case that I'm dealing with now. I have a case that I'm dealing with now. We thank God that we are able to take care of it. But once we abused, the lady is coming to church, but the husband is not yet coming to church. So we deal with a case this week. But how do we deal with cases like that when their faith, they are different in faith? Let me just stop here. Thank you very much.
Honey, would you want to? Hello.
Sorry, I didn't get much of this because I was actually.
Okay, let me. He was asking at what stage do you, especially where there's physical abuse, at what stage do you talk about separation?
Okay.
The stage before the victim dies.
You just have to,
it will vary from individual to individual cases will vary really. But you see, if you're involved with a couple that there's abuse in, if you're seeing a yielding from the abuser to the counseling that is going on, it means that there's hope. There's hope, yes. But when somebody is not paying attention, believe you me, actually there are numbers in Lagos State that if you're a victim of an abuse, if you call, the abuser will be reporting to Alausa almost every week. And that can cure the madness in some cases. So
and then,
okay.
Yes, go ahead. When you finish.
Yeah, so I'm trying to say that it's individualized, but that the first sign for you is that you're doing a confrontation and the abuser is not coming to the realization, and the abuser is not ready to walk with you through the process that will get him, to relearn the behavior. And instead, there's an increase in that behavior, just like in the video that we watched. When you're not getting a yieldedness in that direction, if somebody is yielding to counsel and is listening and is realizing, but fails once in a while, there's hope. But when you're not getting the person to that point of realization and working with you through a process, you just, most times you'll see that actually the victim wants to leave that situation. So that's another signal. If the victim wants to leave the environment, don't hold the victim down, especially when you're not getting a response from the abuser.
Yes. And all those encouragements of family name and hey, what will people say? These are the things that push the victim to face the music, and she does in many of the occasions. I also want to add that if the victim or if the abuser agrees to go for anger management, because oftentimes it's anger that is a major issue here. If they agree to go for anger management, and you can see that person is attending and achieving something, that is good. But if the person says no, you are not going to tell me what I will do and all that, it becomes a problem, and you really have to look to Otherwise, I'm going to put this video that we started with. It's important that we all watch it. When you finish watching it, as many times as you watch it, you will feel bad. So later on, when we finish, you can go to that blog. I've put the address, familycolorsblog.blogspot.com. You can copy it and go and watch it. Just give 1 hour, you will be able to watch it. Then I think Chika hasn't. Chika, you said you wanted, and I'll read up a comment. So Chika, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you just finish, I'll read up this and then we'll wrap it up. Okay. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I wanted to ask a question about violent abuse, the violent one, the beating one. Okay. How can you assist a neighbor or someone that you're seeing that is in a very violent abuse? Do you need the person's consent to seek for help on behalf of the person? And then if you need the person's consent, what if the person say, no, don't worry, I don't want my husband, if you report this issue, my husband will think I told you, he's going to kill me. What if the person says no? Because I've heard of a case where somebody came to help, and by the time the police came there, the woman denied that the husband does not beat him, that it was an accident. Do you need the person's consent to seek for help on behalf of the person, or should you just on your own go out and seek for help? That's my question.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me let me start off. But you do want to?
You go ahead.
Okay. I will say that every case is to be treated according to its merit. So I can tell you yes and no. There are certain circumstances that are like emergencies that like if I find myself living, like I told us last week, when I was quite young, we lived in a place where one man was always dealing with the wife. Of course, as a young child, I couldn't do that kind of, the man will arm me and the wife and beat all of us up. So I couldn't do anything. But if it was me now, and I'm living in that kind of place, I will actually speak to the man. I will speak to the man. But I won't. The most important is that you are not trying to humiliate him. You are trying to use the fact that you are a fellow man to talk. So one of the days you can tell them, let's go and buy. I'll buy you food and all those. And then you take him out, and you use very emotional things, and then you start off. I'm not saying
that's confrontation.
Yes, that's confrontation.
That's confrontation.
You are not hitting him, but you are trying to confront, because sometimes some of these things that people do are learned experiences. She said it. It's not true. They actually think that their spouses should be treated like that. Somebody can tell you, look, don't worry, if you don't know how to manage your wife, come and meet me. I will tell you how to manage your wife. And how to manage your wife is what he or she learned from their parents. And they keep going like that. So that kind of confrontation that is not aimed at humiliating the man can actually take him out and let him see what it means to be a man. That is not beating your wife or beating your husband. That is being a mature person. Okay, so Chi, you want to add?
The woman can also be counseled.
Yes.
Because some don't realize that they can get help. So the woman can also be counseled. She has her fear because she doesn't want to, she knows what will happen. Yeah. But by the time she passes through counsel, she knows what to do. And most of the times, it helps them and they are able to take that action. So do you need their permission? You don't need their permission in terms of the fact that you can step in. But yes, the extent to which you go, most of the times you have to work with the victim and you have to work with the abuser.
And you also can connect them to a counselor You can connect one of them to a counselor, yeah.
Or to a government agency.
Yeah.
Yes, especially where you're not allowed to come near. Maybe it's a neighbor that you're not very close to. You can actually contact a government agency. They know what to do. They will send in somebody into that situation and they usually start to work on it.
We need to help our people. We need to help our people. So the other, I will read a comment here, and then the comment says, one challenge most homes have is how to create equity to home running. Most men feel they put all they get on the table, but the wife uses her own and still asks for more. This may affect the man, creating silent anger that may build up and burst out in ways that may be abusive. so you guys see, well, from all the explanations she has given us, you see that a one-off activity is not really the abuse we are talking about. That one-off, let's say the woman is saying, your money is ours and my money is mine. And then, you know, that the person busts out. Of course, that falls into another thing we have been learning from here, that, you know, the issue of money matters, which is like, I think is either this coming week or the upper week, that we have money matters to talk about. That is something that can create a lot of tension at home. But of course, what we are saying is that those things need to be talked about and discussed so that it can be handled. It shouldn't lead to abuse. Because if it leads to abuse, you are adding salt to injury, and it's more painful. But basically, there are certain predisposing factors within the family or within families that can lead or that can precipitate abuse. But it's important for us to understand that in the wheel of abuse, that center is power and control. I want to control you. I want to determine what you are going to do. I want to be the organ of this place. I want to subdue you and make sure that you never get up again. That is the issue. And so every other thing that comes out are things that are like subsidiaries that come, but at the center is that power and control. So yes, I agree that this kind of thing can bring a lot of pressures, or, you know, conflict within the home, but of course it should be handled in a good way. And the man actually being the leader of that team or family should be able to sit down and sort out things, use principles, some of which we have discussed and some of which we are going to still discuss to be able to sort out that. So should you have any other thing, or is there any other comment from any other person? We can take one more comment and then we call it a day, or we call it a night. Okay, I can't see any other hand. I can't see.
So my own maybe parting shot is that as we go, I need us to go and review the questions we asked ourselves this evening, because abuse takes on a pattern and it's a behavioral pattern. Let's look through those questions and see the tendencies that are rising within us. And speaking to the women and to the men, somebody was saying oh, Shay, you know, it's not only violence. Yes, it's not. Most times women don't go towards violence except for a few, but it could be verbal, where you actually make the man. I remember one man saying that the wife, asked him and said, so if they say men come out, you come out. So decimating, demeaning and intimidating statements that are persistently and consistently made, they translate to abuse. So we should look at our behavior and see the tendencies that we have and do them otherwise. In other words, relearn in those areas so that we don't have a full-blown translation to having a spousal abuse situation in the home. The Lord made us man and wife, and there was a reason why he did it. And you know, the woman that came into your home is a helpmeet, and we are coming as helpmeets. We are coming to complement each other and to fulfill purpose. If we have to cut down each other, we are not going anywhere. We'll just be like people that are struggling to move forward, but we are pulling back each other. Together, we are stronger, and not as individuals in a marital relationship. May God help us to see it that way so that we can build strong homes and strong relationships.
So let's remember that what we are saying is that when we build strong relationships and strong marriages, those strong marriages and strong relationships will build strong families. And strong families will build strong citizens. Strong citizens will build strong societies and nations. Our problem in Nigeria started from the families. We are producing citizens that have no standards, who learn from their parents, and they are doing all kinds of, they take the bad aspect of what their parents are doing to the next level. And so it continues degenerating. And that's where we found ourselves. But we don't have to worry. Let us build ourselves. Let us talk to one person or the other. Don't say that your neighbor's illiteracy or abuse or something like that does not concern you, because that your neighbor might abuse the wife, and the son is looking at him, and he learns how to abuse, nurture. That when they grow up, that son can come and marry your daughter, whom you train very, very well, and you enter into another wahala. So please, we are working together. Let us do this thing together, and let's build a very powerful society. We're going to try as much as possible to put in so many of these things in the blog, familycolorsblog.blogspot.com. Go there, you'll be able to see. Thank you so much for being part of what this we're doing. And let's do this again next week. We have an interesting topic again next week. Let's be a part of it. It's going to build every one of us up and build our society up. I want us to pray before we. Okay,
Nice.
Want to say something? Okay, let's pray. Father, we thank you for the opportunity. We ask, oh God, that you help us to be people that will build with you, and people that will build our families, our environment, our society, our nation. Thank you, Father, Lord, for in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. Bye.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Good night.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.